Hello, gamers. I'm Mark Frein, and this is Freinztime, a channel where I give in-depth reviews of tabletop role-playing games, new and old. The format of these reviews will always be the same. What do I love about this game? And then who might also love playing this game? There have been so many amazing games published over the almost 5 decades of history of the hobby. I'm not going to run out of time reviewing just the ones I love. Plus, there's stuff to love about most games. Given that this is the first of however many of these I do, and given the subject of this review is the good old Red Book version of basic Dungeons and Dragons, I'm going to take some liberties with this review, especially compared to how I might look at contemporary games from a playability standpoint. All right, let's take a look. This is my original Moldvay Red Book from 1981. I've kept it with me all these years. It's traveled with me from North Dakota to Minnesota to Vancouver, Canada to New York and to now Austin, Texas. As you can see, it's still in pretty good condition. I can't recall exactly where and when I bought this or the Red Book set, but it, along with the Greyhawk box set, was my introduction to Dungeons and Dragons in the early 80s. I do know exactly where I bought the Greyhawk box set here at a store called the Forbidden Planet in New York City. The store still stands to this day, although it's moved across the street, and it sells games and all sorts of other really cool things. My dad was gracious enough to let me tape the Greyhawk map to our dining area wall. I remember it being right there above us whenever we would be eating. And for a number of years in late grade school and junior high school, I had a group of friends that usually gathered at my house at least once a week, if not a couple times a week. And I was almost always the DM, the GM. I have enough memory of those gaming sessions to know that I was a terrible dungeon master out the gate. I kept inserting NPCs into the sessions that would basically take over things and let me be the coolest character, have the coolest character, be the coolest player. It's an awful bad habit for running games. I also think I was vindictive. I killed the thief character of one of the group's younger brothers something like 25 times because he would run all over the place and be irritating. And then I would come up with some crazy new way that he would get killed outright. And see him freak out. I would drop in +10 Vorpal swords cut straight from fantasy and literature. I think we had Glamdring and we had Stormbringer and everything popping into the game. And then when they became too powerful, I just suddenly take those things away from the characters again as a way to reward and punish. All terrible DM traits and all very normal because we were 12 or 13 years old, of course, and just learning how to play D&D. And remember back then, we didn't have these wonderful YouTubes that are real plays, and we didn't have a lot of the kinds of advice they give to beginning players that we do today. So we were just making it up as we went along and doing the best we could. And we were those Stranger Things kids on the TV show. I remember when I first saw the first episode of Stranger Things, I said, "Yep, that's exactly us." But I also remember the eye-opening possibilities that D&D presented, but possibilities of imagination and creativity. It really rocked our worlds of shared amusement. We had grown up playing Life and Risk and Monopoly and Sorry and other games. And then all of a sudden this game shows up where you can you can do almost anything you can imagine. So that just opened up a whole different way of interacting and playing games. Here's a table in the Red Book where you can randomly determine loot, magic items. And I altered, you can see this, my pencil. I was really surprised when I saw this, when I got ready for this recording. You can see that I added a line to include room for special magic items of my own design, probably that +10 Vorpal Sword or Stormbringer that I wanted to throw in. But before there was D&D, there were all sorts of other board games that we grew up playing. But those rule sets were very contained. You played Risk by the rules. Sometimes you added in little cheats, but generally speaking, there wasn't room to add to the way you played the game. That's not the way they were designed. But D&D allowed for so much more imagination and contribution to making the game your own version of the game. That was really different, and it was stunning and frankly very developmental, I think, for those of us who got into it. we learned how to express ourselves in different ways. I somehow convinced my father to drive myself and a best friend from Grand Forks, North Dakota, where we lived, to Wisconsin for Gen Con during the University of Wisconsin Parkside era of the convention. I probably went in 1983 or 1984. I wish I had photos now. Having gone to Gen Con in more recent years, the Parkside Convention was what many would consider a local convention by today's standards. I'm pretty sure that Gary Gygax and others were present. Indeed, I probably participated in games run by key staff from TSR and didn't even realize it. But I have memories, including what I'm pretty sure was a run into the Tomb of Horrors as a convention competition. Who knows? Maybe that was even run by Gary Gygax himself. When looking at the Red Book now, all the beloved pieces and parts are there, as well as the rules like this hit table that have long vanished from D&D editions. I wouldn't play this game now today, given all the contemporary options for fantasy role playing. But a look back at this thing is still really interesting. And when I did look back at it to get ready for this YouTube, some of the things that I was reminded about surprised me. Take a look at this little paragraph, an inheritance rule. Some other game systems have very sophisticated apprenticeship or progeny rules, but this is just one of those quirky things that you completely forgot about from early editions. And it sparks your imagination. Wouldn't it be interesting to run an entire campaign with a bunch of rich young brats who are all the inheritors of very successful adventurers that started from nothing? But it's the visuals that are the things that bring me back most when I look at the book now. The Haunted Keep here on page 57, along with the underground schematic and map key. I know I ran adventures through that very map in some way, shape, or form multiple times. The Errol Otis classic cover, the interior Jeff D artwork, all of this like drops of manna poured into my young imagination. And finally, the inspirational source material appendix probably became my go-to fantasy reading list for years. I haven't read every book on this list, but some of my most beloved fantasy novels and novelists, Ursula Le Guin, Roger Zelazny, Tolkien, are there, as well as the standards from the fantasy canon. Returning to this slim red book now and thinking about the review questions I'll ask of every game that I review on this channel, what do I love? Who might love this game? Well, Google Gemini says as many as 50 million imaginative souls are estimated to have played D&D worldwide. Well, that's a pretty profound answer to the second question. What about what do I love? I love that this little book and the later hardbacks for advanced D&D and all that came later unlocked a hobby that I have continuously explored for 40 plus years. It's been a source of pleasure, friendships, and intellectual stimulation that rivals music, art, and books in general for me. So, summing it all up, for me, this was the thing that unlocked everything else. This particular little thin book that I've kept with me all these years was the gateway, was the door that opened up a whole different world of entertainment and creativity. And it's very difficult for me to imagine having so much fun with role-playing games over the last decades if this hadn't entered my life when it did. Now, obviously, other games were coming out at the time. Early Traveler, other kinds of games came in roughly all in a 5-year time frame. So if it hadn't been D&D, it probably would have been something else. However, I think that I've held on to this copy itself for so long is a testament to how important it's been for me and my own journey with tabletop role-playing games and gaming in general. I think it's really cool that these days, with so much of a revival of both old school games, but also just tabletop games in general, they are being played by more people than ever. They are influencing great video games like Baldur's Gate 3 and others. I hope the new generation of kids who are my age back then and their teens now are enjoying the same kind of opening and blossoming of their imagination inspired by this and other games like it. All right, have great gaming.